Hello, everybody. Welcome to our very last Introduction to Ionized Water webinar class. Tonight is part 12. Wow, that went fast to me anyway. And this is our wrap up. Although I will have to say that if I think about my clothing options, it was so hot part of the summer, and now tonight I have a sweater on. So, go figure, right? And I moved and everything. So just to remind you all, I am Dr. Peggy Parker. I am a naturopathic and European biological medicine physician, and I got started with Ionized and Magic and using their ionized water in January of 2005, long time ago. And so I've been studying ionized water ever since then. And so I'm really happy to share with you all the things that I have learned. Now, through my biological medicine classes, which is all of this little bit of review we're going to do, is going to lead to a question. So in my biological medicine classes, Dr. Rao talked about the fact that if you could create a slight shift in the pH of the blood, urine, and saliva, and reduce oxidation on the cell membrane and get more minerals into cells, a body could really heal itself of anything. So the one thing that I want you to walk away from this class, this webinar series with, is that your DNA isn't your destiny. That no matter what your health history looks like, no matter where you have issues, ionized water has the potential to help you make your body the best that it can be in some of these areas. Now, sometimes disease processes are so far along, and certain things, like I talked about last week about having problems with cartilage deterioration in my hips and my lower back. And so it can't necessarily help me regrow the cartilage, but it can help to hydrate what little cartilage is left and give that a better, give it a better option to create more cushioning. So there are certain things, if you've lost a finger or you've lost a leg or an arm or whatever, it's not going to help you regrow them, but it is going to help the healing process. It's going to help that healing process on all levels, including emotional and psychological healing, as well as physical healing. So we're going to start with some questions. So here is the first one of these big questions. So if the cells are thick and sticky, like fat on the vent fan, which keeps water and oxygen from going in and toxins from coming out, how does Kangen water get into the cells? This person went on to kind of answer their own question. So I want her to understand how well she made it through the class. Said, is it that the water starts to penetrate the small intestines instead of sitting in the stomach for 20 minutes? Is it as cells get healthier in the small intestines that it just repeats itself throughout the body with cells reproducing healthier and healthier daughter cells? Yes, yes, and yes. So the very first premise is that when we have been bombarded by enough free radicals, that phospholipid bilayer begins to change and it gets thick and sticky like the fat on the vent fan. And what we need to do in order to get it back to this state is to get more antioxidants into the body. So I know that there's a whole lot of teaching in the world of enagic about aquaporins and how enagic water has a structure that allows it to get through the aquaporins. Well, that might be partially true, but they can't. The aquaporins are like those channels and pumps and receptor sites, because it is one of those. And so as long as they're damaged, the water can't get in. And that's why this is true. And so what we have to do is change that cell membrane. We have to change the fats, we have to change the proteins, and we do that by introducing more antioxidants. The more antioxidants that come in, the faster this changes. And so, yes, it is that the water starts to penetrate the small intestines instead of sitting in the stomach for 20 minutes because of the pH. Remember, one of the really important things about Kangen water is that slightly alkaline pH water actually passes through the stomach really quickly and gets into the small intestine. And the faster it gets through the stomach and into the small intestine, the more antioxidants are still left in the water. And that starts to make that change in the small intestine really rapidly. Remember, those cells only last 36 hours. So there's a constant changeover, a quick changeover in the small intestines. So as those small intestine cells are getting healthier and healthier, they're allowing more and more and more of the water to pass through with more of the antioxidants in it. And so that's getting into the bloodstream and the lymphatic system a lot faster. And that's helping all of the cells throughout the body get healthier and healthier. So all of the cell membranes are getting healthier. And just like you said right here in your last point, as those daughter cells begin to reproduce and they're healthier, they're producing healthier daughter cells, which are then going to create even healthier new daughter cells as they're exposed to more antioxidants. So yes, you answered that question. You asked and answered your own question. Thank you. You're an amazing student. So we're going to get to some basics because that's going to help us answer the next question. So I want you to remember that atoms are just single building blocks, and they have the same number of electrons orbiting the nucleus, which has the same number of protons and neutrons. And molecules are two or more atoms that are bonded together. They can be the same or different. And here's a water molecule. Now, remember that when water and electricity come together, it creates both ions and atoms and molecules. So the first picture are ions, the second are atoms, and the last one is a molecule. Now remember that ions create the pH changes. So the question that's coming up is, hold on. Where'd it go? Where's the question? Sorry. It's all about the differences between pHs and some other questions. And so apparently I've gotten a little out of order. So we're going to take this question. We'll come back to that one. I've reproduced my slide presentation several times today, so maybe I just put something in the wrong order. So this person asked, I have a nurse that's currently sampling the water who asked a great question. If we see excess calcium in our glass, where does the excess calcium go when it enters our body? Remember, I told you that it's essential to remove the excess calcium, because where that excess calcium goes in the body is not in any good places. It helps to create bone spurs. It helps to create cataracts, and it helps to create hardening of the arteries. Ionized calcium is very, very sticky. So you really have got to clean your machine really often, and really, really, really honestly, please remove the excess calcium from your water before it goes through your ionizer, because not only does it act as an insulator like some other chemicals, it actually can do harm to the body. So this sentence at the top, pre-filters are essential, is really important. Okay, so here we go. So now that we reviewed the little atoms and molecules, we want to get to the pH scale, because this is where that question is. And you remember that a pH scale goes from 0 to 14, and and 7 is neutral. Anything below 7 increases in acidity, and anything above 7 increases in alkalinity. And so here we are again. Ions create pH changes. So an OH negative, or a hydroxide ion, creates alkalinity in the water. Now, how are pH and antioxidants related? We have to start with definitions again. pH is the potential for hydrogen, and ORP is oxidation reduction potential. So the higher the pH, the greater for the potential for a negative ORP reading. So when you use pH drops in water, you're testing the pH, the potential for hydrogen. Now, water can be alkaline, but not have a high or negative ORP reading, because just because water is alkaline doesn't mean there is an oxidation reduction potential going on in the water. So, for instance, in cities that I've visited where the water is already very alkaline, places like Austin, Texas, and Boston, Massachusetts, and many others have a pH that's 9 or more. And it doesn't have a negative ORP reading. It still has a positive or a low positive ORP reading. So alkalinity is not the same as an oxidation reduction potential. pH is just how much hydrogen there is in the water. So it's the potential for hydrogen. The oxidation reduction potential is happening when a chemical reaction is going on that's creating reduction or a negative ORP and an oxidation, which is a positive ORP. And that happens it can happen because there's a chemical reaction going on, but most often it happens because there is an electrical an introduction of electricity to the water. And so an ORP meter is reading the electrical millivolts that are created when oxidation and reduction are going on inside the water. So I hope that answers the question between what's the difference between pH and what's the difference between ORP. Remember that oxidation and reduction happen at the same time because they're a chemical reaction between minerals in the water. And so that redox happens when in ionized water, when electricity has been introduced. And ionizers actually separate the reduced water from the oxidized water into two separate streams. So reduction reduces oxidation, and oxidation increases the oxidation. So the higher the pH reading of the water, the greater there is for a potential of reduction. So reduction doesn't happen in acidic water. It will only happen in high pH water or a higher pH water. But the lower the pH reading of the water, the greater the potential for increasing oxidation. Here's the next question that's kind of related. If you freeze or make ice cubes out of Kangen water, does it lose its antioxidant and or pH properties? So the antioxidants that are created in the water during oxidation reduction, this whole redox potential, are volatile. They're short-lived. And so the antioxidants in Kangen water will be dramatically reduced or maybe completely negated or mostly negated when you freeze it or heat it. And the pH changes when you heat it. It does not change it when you freeze it, but it does change when you heat it. And now here is the next question. That ever impressive tea bag demo. Why and how, or how and why does it work? So for those of you who've seen that tea bag, it's because of the pH of the water, and it's because an oxidation reduction potential is happening with the tea. Because there are chemical constituents in the tea in the form of tea leaves, right? And so there's an oxidation reduction potential or redox potential happening with the tea. And so the more alkaline the water is and the higher the ORP reading, the more redox that's happening, and that's creating more tea. But if you put it in acid water, it doesn't work, right? Because that's oxidizing. If you're putting it in highly charged alkaline water, it works perfectly. Does that make sense to everyone? So in achieving alkalinity, you mentioned those sticks are not really a good thing either. I have a friend who went to an integrative doctor, and he was told he was sick because he was acidic. He gave him some supplements, etc., and a stick to make his water alkaline. So tell me about the sticks and why they're not a good thing. So those sticks are made out of mostly calcium carbonate, and it'll have some magnesium oxide and a few more minerals, but primarily calcium carbonate. So calcium carbonate is that thing that we want to get rid of, all that excess calcium. There's lots of different forms of calcium that are really good for you and helpful and are able to be assimilated in the body. So calcium gluconate and acetate and several others are really great, but calcium carbonate will actually turn your body to stone. It's a really negative, lowest form of calcium. And human bodies do not assimilate calcium carbonate well. Like dogs and other animals eat bones and they can assimilate part of it, but humans don't. That's why we don't eat bones. When was the last time you saw a human gnawing on a bone for dinner? Like, I mean, just a bone. They're not like getting meat off of it, but I mean, like really just chewing up a bone. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen because we can't assimilate it. So, not very good. The lowest form of all of the minerals that are in those sticks, and so it does create an alkaline water. But at what cost? I'm going to tell you at what cost because I went through it. So back before, a long time ago, I had the precursor to an Akai machine. Well, it was an Akai machine that used to be called Singer. And that machine did make the water alkaline, and it did it through electricity. And just, I never got any good results out of it. And so I went on to put a very, very, very expensive water system in my medical spa that I had at the time. And I put in, it was like a $12,000 system. And so it had everything. It had giant carbon filters, and it had a UV light, and it had reverse osmosis at all the sinks, and it had lots of different factors. And so because that RO water was not alkaline, I put drops in it. These mineral drops should be the same thing as these sticks. It's just that it was in liquid form. And I will tell you what happened to me. I drank that water for a good long time, several years. And what happened to me was that I did develop bone spurs. And I made more gallstones and kidney stones than you can even imagine. I produced so many gallstones, even though I had, so this was an inpatient clinic, and so everybody would come and they could stay for up to 8 weeks at a time. And I had them on juice fasting, and we did a liver flush every week. I did a liver flush every week along with my patients, which is a disgusting thing to go through on a weekly basis. Not so bad, a couple of times a year, but every freaking week. I still produced a bajillion stones every darned week. I ended up by the time the spa closed, my gallbladder was gangrenous and I almost died from all those stones. It was terrible. It made my bile really thick. It made me have tons of gallstones. And when we traced it all back, you could see that it was because of certain minerals. And those minerals were in those drops I was using to make my water alkaline. And they're the same minerals that are in that stick. So if you want to make your water alkaline, the best way to do it is through electrolysis and not by adding extra low quality minerals to it. Did that answer the question? People can wave at me if you feel like that was enough. All right. So, okay, this is a question. I love to answer this question. Hearing this every day and it's driving me crazy. I've heard you can be too alkaline. Can you address clearly why not? Yes, I can. And there will be a lot more in the advanced class. But this is how your body regulates pH. There are 3 ways that your body regulates the tightly controlled pH in your bloodstream. And that's where people are saying you're too acidic. Most of the time they're talking about blood. So the first is a chemical buffer. The second is your respiratory system, and last is your urinary system. And these 3 systems work together to create a proper pH balance in your body. Now, that's not to say that sometimes there aren't breakdowns in some of these areas and we end up with some problems, but so what your body does is put bicarbonate out, sodium bicarbonate out, and it does that to perform a whole. Remember last time when we were talking about digestion a couple of weeks ago, and I told you that when the acidic food leaves the stomach, it dumps bicarbonate, sodium bicarbonate into the stomach. Into the small intestine, which helps to change the pH of the small intestine. So this is it's kind of a more complicated reaction than we really have time to go over tonight. But we're just going to read through this really quickly because I think it will help. And so when the hydrogen ion binds to the hydrogen, leaving the reaction with the water and the COT, it can easily be eliminated through your breath and urination. So that's why it's dumping this bicarbonate into your system. So that reaction can also be reversed. So if it becomes too alkaline, more positively charged hydrogen ions are added, and then they need to be released in the blood to make it more acidic. And so the kidneys aid in the process by releasing bicarbonate whenever it's needed. Does that make sense to everybody? It will make a lot more sense when we get to the kidneys in the advanced class. One of the other ways that our acid-alkaline balance is maintained is through respiration through our lungs. And that's important because it can reverse any add any acidity that's going on, and it can also reverse anything that's too alkaline that's going on. So it does that by controlling the amount of CO2 in the blood. So if our bodies are too acidic, it releases more carbon dioxide, and if they're too alkaline, it reserves some of the CO2. So if your body's not making enough bicarbonate, it's not releasing enough of that, then the lungs will take over and help with the pH balance in the blood. Now, the final way that it can happen is through the kidneys. So the kidneys will either release more calcium or hold on to more calcium, depending on how acidic or alkaline the blood is. So these are the 3 ways that your body buffers. So it is virtually impossible to become too acidic or too alkaline. The water that you drink will not, the pH of the water that you drink will not. It will, capital N, capital O, capital T, change the pH of your blood or your body. What does change the homeostasis, or what changes to create more balance in your body, is to be properly hydrated. Remember what we talked about when cell membranes become too thick and sticky, and the carbon dioxide is trapped inside the cell, or when enough water can't get in, there's a lot of acids building up in the cell, and that's where a cell can become unhealthy. But when we introduce lots of antioxidants in the form of H2 and free electrons, and we change that cell membrane, then the cell becomes properly hydrated and the pH is perfectly balanced. So when people say that their bodies are too alkaline, they're generally testing the urine. And they're doing an inappropriate test of the urine, because your urine is going to reflect the pH of the last thing you ate or drank. So in order to get a proper pH reading, you have to fast completely. No water, no food, no nothing for at least 12 hours. And then you collect the first morning's urine, you take a blood sample, you take a saliva sample, you test the pH, and then you look at the ratios between them. People keep thinking that their urine should be alkaline, but it shouldn't. It should always be at least slightly acidic. And the more acidic it is, the more it proves that your body's functioning properly, and it's concentrating the acids out. It's taking more acids out of your body and dumping them. So, but that is only true if the ratios between the blood, urine, and saliva are appropriate. If your saliva is acidic when it should be alkaline, and your blood is slightly alkaline and it should be a little bit acidic, and your urine is slightly alkaline, that's a whole different ball game. All of these ratios, it's all about how they relate to one another. But generally speaking, when people say their urine, their body is too alkaline, it's because they're taking a urine sample after they've had something to eat or drink, and they haven't waited and let it concentrate for at least 12 hours before they tested the pH. That is absolutely essential. It's the fasting that is essential to find out what the true urine pH is. It's also essential to find out what your blood pH is and your saliva pH, because your body is constantly releasing bicarbonate. It's constantly regulating the amount of calcium that's staying in your bloodstream or being removed from your bloodstream, the amount of carbon dioxide or oxygen that's in your bloodstream. It's all affecting all of this all the time. And so unless you have all of those things, you can't tell me that a body is too alkaline or too acidic just based on urine alone. And I have tested hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these tests over the last 20 years, and I have yet to find one person who was too alkaline. I found several, the vast majority of them, who started out being slightly too acidic in their blood. But I never one time found a single person's blood that was too alkaline. I hope that answered that question. Drives me crazy too when I hear it. So here is the next question is, should we put Kangen water, like acid water, in our diffuser? Oh, which water? And will it help to clean the air like putting it in a mister bottle? Yes, absolutely. So this is what I do. I have one mister where I have acidic water in it. And I do that about once a week and I put it near an air duct, a return vent, especially in the wintertime, and let it really get through the house. And normally in my bedroom at night, I have, if it's in the wintertime when it's dry, I use a humidifier, and I put strong alkaline water in the humidifier. And then we are going to start talking about body things here. So, is it okay to run warm water through the machine even though it beeps? I thought it would be easier on the eyes for the water protocol. If it's barely warm, like just body temperature, because here in Washington, our water is frigid all year long, but especially in the winter. It is cold. And so in order to get higher ORP readings and more accurate pH readings, it's actually a good idea to have it mixed a little bit so that it's coming out a little bit closer to room temperature. And so that is going to be a little more comfortable for your eyes, and you can have it just a tiny bit warmer than that. If you're running hot water through there, it is going to damage your machine. But if you're putting barely lukewarm water through it, if it starts to beep, that it's really okay. And yes, it does feel better on your eyes if it's not frigid. And what are your thoughts about using the water for type 1 diabetes? You know, if you're following the water protocol, it's going to help your body reach its highest potential, no matter what that is. I've had a few type 1 diabetics that were able to really cut back so far on their insulin that they were just barely taking any insulin whatsoever. And that's really helpful, because the more insulin they have to take, the more at risk they are for blindness and neuropathy and all kinds of bad things that come along with having to take insulin for your whole life. And then my neighbor has many autoimmune disorders, and she says she's allergic to ionized water. Now, that cannot happen. You can't be allergic to ionized water. All it is water that had electricity pass through it. It's split. It has more antioxidants in it. That this is something that's either been fed to her or that she's conceived in her mind, but it's not possible to be allergic to ionized water. It's just not. She has used Perfect water from Amway and their air humidifier. I don't know anything about their Perfect water, so I really can't comment on it. Would it be the minerals and the other additives that she's allergic to? She's not allergic to it. What she's seeing is her body getting rid of toxins. She had a rash on her knee where they did a knee replacement surgery 3 years ago. I had her spray it with 2.5 to clean it, and then 11.5 followed by beauty water, and her skin broke out in what looked like hives. As much as I hate to use this word, she was having a reaction because there were lots of toxins in the skin that were being pushed to the skin, to the surface of the skin. And so it was just those toxins being released. And you'll find out more about this in the class that follows, starting next week, on the skin and how the skin is used as a detoxification method. She has so many things going on that she's worried about using the water now. Do you have any suggestions on what I should tell her? If you don't have that book, If Bodies Heal Themselves and Why Am I Still Sick, then get it and give that to her and let her digest it. Will the water help dissolve bone spurs? Absolutely it does. I am one of the persons who had them dissolve after drinking the water for a number of months. I guess it's sometimes good to have all these health issues because at least I know what the possibilities are, right? I still have 3 people that are young and healthy, not drinking anything but the water for 2 to 3 months, who do not feel any different on the water. Thoughts? Absolutely. Just because you don't feel any different doesn't mean it's not changing your cells. And if you're young and healthy and you don't have a whole bunch of things going on, you're not going to notice as much. And some people are not very aware of their bodies. They're just not. They're not really super in tune. Like I have a friend who has lupus, and her doctors say, you know more about your body than any of us doctors ever will. You are so in tune with every little thing. Well, that's because all kinds of crazy things happen to her on a regular basis. And so she's learned to really pay attention to her body. But most people are not like that, particularly if they're young and healthy. They don't have a lot of things that they're looking for. Just give them the book about, what's it called? Are You Confused? That one is a great one to give to people to help them understand why it's still important, even if they don't think they need it, why drinking ionized water with all those antioxidants is a great thing. And you can talk to them about how much money they're saving on not buying a bunch of antioxidants, where only about 25% of the antioxidants are going to be used by their body anyway. That's about all that your body can absorb and break down. So might as well just drink water, and then more of what you take as supplements and your foods are actually more bioavailable. Will rinsing with 2.5 water damage your teeth if you don't rinse with more alkaline water afterwards? I've heard conflicting stories. You see that giant red? Yes, I know this because I gave myself a couple of giant cavities when I was experimenting. That's how I figured out how you have to do it. So yes, always, 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 even if you're using it, just as a throat gargle or anything, when you're finished, you must rinse your mouth out with alkaline water to restore the balance, unless you'd like to have the enamel on your teeth erode away. For your water protocol, does the 11.5 water have to be fresh? Yes, 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 yes. So if you want to, you can make it fresh every day and put it in little tiny glass bottles that are just the right size. And then, like a 2 ounce or a whatever bottle, and put a cap on it. Take it with you if you're on the go. And, but yeah, it's really important for it to be fresh. And if my machine can only get up to 10.5, will this be good enough? Yes, but I think there's a few things that you could do to increase the pH. And I mentioned one of those earlier is try to make the water more room temperature. So if you're already in a place where your water supply is warmer, then that's not going to be an issue. And then it's usually that you have excess calcium in your water, or you've got some other insulators in there, or you don't have enough minerals. It's going to be one of those things. So we can address that, but it's still going to be great at 10.5 for this particular, for the digestion protocol. 10.5 will be fine. Okay, so yes, so this question is going to be answered in more detail when we get to the advanced course on the brain, which is one of the 3 that's up and available for you to register for right now. My client is concerned about developing Alzheimer's and is wondering what the chances are of avoiding this. Remember, DNA is not your destiny. So there are only a few things that pass the blood-brain barrier, which you will learn about in that course. And one of them is water. So getting plenty of fluids with antioxidants in it into your body means that there's more water with more antioxidants, with blood cells that are really appropriate, don't have thick, sticky cell membranes, blah, 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 on and on, all the things you've heard me say about 1,000 times, that are going to get to the brain and carry the nutrients that are needed by the brain and help mitigate the things that could cause Alzheimer's. And his son is also mentally challenged, difficulty speaking, and other behavioral issues. I'd like to know what to say to get his son to be on the water. Again, not every single thing can be completely reversed, but things can get a lot better. I don't know if you know who Donna Gates is, but if you don't, you might want to look her up on the internet. She works with people like his son to help get the gut healed. And she was working with Jenny McCarthy. So I think most of you probably know who Jenny McCarthy is. And Jenny McCarthy's son had autism. And so Donna Gates works with a lot of kids with autism, changing their diets and all of that kind of thing. And Donna Gates and Jenny McCarthy were both, Donna Gates used to be in my downline when I was a distributor. And so Jenny McCarthy had an Enagic machine, probably still does. And she was giving her son the water and following Donna Gates' program. And he's no longer autistic. And he says to his mom, "Do you remember when I used to be shy?" So anybody who has these kinds of issues, remember that molecules of emotion can have a lot to do with behavioral issues. And so, you know, when all that frustration gets trapped in the cells, imagine how frustrated you'd be on a daily basis if you couldn't talk to communicate your needs or your desires. And so all this, we don't want to get that all trapped inside the cells. We want to get those cell membranes nice and permeable so that those emotions can be released just like the other toxins can. So I would just tell him that this is a really great place to start at healing his son's body to the best of its ability, and that things like frustration happen a lot, and even slow speech can happen because there's not a good enough electrical connection on a cellular from cell to cell, which we're going to get to when we talk about the brain and the nervous system. And so as hydration takes place, these synapses fire faster and there's more connection. And that helps be able to explain, you know, it helps that young man be able to communicate a little bit better. And it helps his behavioral issues get a little more sane. So I would just let him know that this water might help and it can't hurt. So that's really what I tell lots of people. Might help, can't hurt, right? Might as well try it. It's just water. But it's water that contains a lot of antioxidants, and that has been shown to improve all kinds of things. Remember, the most effective way to help our bodies heal themselves is to mimic the pH that's within the ideal range for every cell and tissue and organ and glandular system in the body. And the way we do that is by changing those cell membranes and allowing every cell to be properly hydrated. And that will allow the cell to have the perfect pH. And so if we're using the water in a particular way to clean to clean up a wound or to rinse our mouths or to do any of those things, we have to look at what's the pH of our eyes, like what's the pH of tears, what's the pH of saliva, what's the pH of skin, all of that. And we want to help mimic that the best that we can to create a more ideal healing environment. All right, so before we get here, I want to get and see what these questions are. Okay, so what's my opinion of the H2 Blue reagent drops and how do they work? The H2 Blue are great, and they actually tell us how much hydrogen is in the water. So the more hydrogen that's in the water, the better the chances are that we're going to create free electrons and have lots of antioxidants, both in the form of H2 and free electrons. I don't understand, Debbie, what this other question is. Will the advanced class, which advanced class will discuss body RE? What is that? I need to know what the RE is. I go to a holistic dentist. She doesn't believe in our Kangen water to help change the body to more alkaline. Her philosophy is a breathing technique method to add more carbon dioxide. If you added more carbon dioxide, you'd make your body more acidic, not more alkaline. So yes, breathing techniques lower stress. Lowering stress actually lowers the amount of acids in the body. So, but she's got it all backwards. And she cannot believe it if she doesn't want to, but really the reason that she doesn't believe it is because it hasn't been explained to her properly. If you quit talking about the water being alkaline, and if you quit talking about the water making your body alkaline, and you start talking to her about antioxidants, she'll get it. I keep telling you, quit talking about that pH. Talk about those antioxidants. It makes huge difference. Rebecca, I was always told urine should be bright yellow for the healthiest body regulation. Oh, wrong, wrong, wrong. It should look like lemon water. It should be so pale because that means that your body, if you're talking about your first morning's urine, that's true. That it's just showing that you have a high concentration, your urine is highly concentrated, which means that your kidneys are working properly and all that. But during the day, it should be pale yellow. I mean, so yellow. I mean, so light that you can't even tell that it's there. All right, so Debbie said pH. Yes, in our advanced classes, we will talk about different pHs of different body regulation. Well, so what I'm saying is that in the morning, it shouldn't be bright. It shouldn't be light yellow. It should be dark yellow. And as you go through the day, it should be just basically not colored at all, Rebecca. So Debbie, believing due to low mineral content in my city water and even with remineral cartridge, I can't get the blue drops to go clear. I don't, I would talk to Tyler or are you connected to the hydrogen group on Facebook? Even though I think that they do a lot of crazy things, they can help you with that. Eric says, in the 3-minute elevator speech, it says that free radicals are responsible for aging as well as all known illnesses. Does that mean that the flu, cold, strep, ear infections, etc., are caused from free radicals and not germs, viruses, or bacteria? So what it means is that your body's a little unhealthy because, so in homeopathic world, our bodies, a healthy body operates at a frequency that's too high or too low for germs or bacteria to actually do anything to us. But when our body vibrations get too low or too high, we are then open to the frequency to be attacked by germs or viruses or bacteria. And so the free radical damage that's happening to the cells without enough antioxidants causes those cells to not be functioning at their best. And so then we are more susceptible to germs or viruses or bacteria. And that can cause things like flus and colds and strep and ear infections and all those kinds of things. But if your body's immune system is intact because it's operating fully, you won't get the flu or colds or strep throat or ear infections or any of those other things because your body's immune system has the ability to fight them off. If your digestion's working properly, as you ingest viruses and bacteria, the acid in your stomach is going to eat them up. There's all kinds of things like that that happen when our bodies are reacting properly, as opposed to being under a lot of duress because of free radicals are causing the downward regulation of our immune system. And so Colette said, did you see my email is about her friends with Crohn's? Oh, so yeah, I did, Colette, but I can't really answer that question because I don't have enough information, so I didn't want to bring it up. I have heard many times that 1 glass of fresh Kangen water at a 9.5 pH has more antioxidants than we can eat in fruit and veggies in a day. For example, there are more antioxidants in 1 glass of 9.5 water than there are in 30 cups of tea or 5 pounds of blueberries. You know, those kinds of things are stupid to say. I hate to say that, but I mean, I don't mean to sound condescending or anything, but we don't have any proof of that. And I can't tell you because I haven't tested your water, and I haven't tested your amount of hydrogen in your water. I don't know if your machine is clean. I don't know if you have excess calcium or all kinds of other things. So a lot of times the things like this are like games of telephone. So I might say to someone, there's a plethora. There's so many antioxidants in water. There are more antioxidants in a glass of water than there are in an average, smoothie. And then all of a sudden it turns into 30 cups of tea and 5 pounds of blueberries. Well, unless we know how many antioxidants there are in those blueberries, or how many antioxidants are in those 30 cups of tea, and how many antioxidants there are in your water, it's just a crazy thing to say that. So I think it's very safe to say that 9.5 water has more antioxidants that are bioavailable and usable by our bodies than in fruits and vegetables. Since our body can only use about 25% of the antioxidants in fruits and vegetables, and it can use 100% of the antioxidants that are in our water, we get a bigger bang for our buck when we have antioxidants in water. And the antioxidants in water don't create more oxidation, because remember, when food and supplements and tea, the antioxidants in those, are doing their job, they're donating an electron to a free radical, they become weak free radicals themselves. But that's not true of free electrons. Free electrons just mitigate. There's nothing left. That's all there is. Hydrogen just binds with something to stop the free radical. So if you just talk about the real science, you don't have to go into these 30 cups of tea or 5 pounds of blueberry kind of things that are not provable. And that's the thing I want you to stay away from. Don't repeat things that aren't provable. If you can find the science behind 5 pounds of blueberries and 30 cups of tea, then you're free and clear to use it. But until then, I really recommend that you just stay with the things that are clear, that are provable, that are sensible, and that are believable to people. Around what ORP should the 11.5 water be? That's really dependent on your water source. I'm lucky enough here in Spokane, when I use a water softener and I keep my machine really clean and I use pre-filters, I can get a negative ORP of over 1,000 on 11.5 water. But most people get somewhere around 600 or, plus. Anything above 600 is good. I've heard that 11.5 pH water lasts longer when kept in the fridge. Is this true? No. I mean, exposure to light, heat, air, and motion all have an effect on the pH, but we don't really care about the pH unless we're doing cleaning with it. And then if you leave it in a dark bottle or you leave it, the calcium that's in there will dissipate out and end up in the bottom of your bottle, and the emulsification of the strong alkaline water works better. And the same with it, all of those things that we wanted it to do, which is to lift away dirt, to emulsify fat, all those things. But that you don't need to keep it in the fridge for that. And if you're talking about 11.5 water for anything else, the only thing that's going to keep it having the antioxidants that you need is to have it in a container, have it all the way filled to the top so it's overflowing, put a tight cap on it, and try not to disturb it too much. Did that help? Well, I think we have passed our time, or we're just about there anyway. I am so happy that, one more question and then I'll close. Can the 2.5 pH water be stored in a plastic milk carton container? If you're not going to be using it for disinfection on a body part or anything like that, it's fine. But it still absorbs some of the plastic, so you just don't want to ingest that. But if you're just using it, to disinfect your countertops or something, I don't have any problem with that. Just try not to use plastic for anything. So I made the switch a long time ago. So it's just my, don't need those plastics in our environment or our bodies. Anyway, that's my opinion. So now back to saying goodbye to everybody for the end of this series. This has been a wonderful journey for me, and I hope everyone else. And so I totally appreciate that you have been on the journey with me, and I am excited about the fact that a lot of you have chosen to move on to the next class. I went ahead and did an override to keep the price of the class on the skin at $59 through the end of the day today. I'll still take, you can still register until Saturday, but on Friday night, it'll shut off because I need to be able to get all the information out so that you have the right Zoom numbers and you have all of that. So that information will go out to you on either Saturday or Sunday. And so you can register up until that time. As soon as, I feel like I have to get the information out for everybody, I'll make it so that no one can buy anymore. But tomorrow the price does go up. So please, if you want to take the class, go ahead and get registered tonight. And if you do it before I get around to it in the morning, you'll be lucky. If you're on the East Coast, probably going to happen because, got a lot going on early in the morning around here. So anyway, thank you so much. This has been fun for me. Like I tell you all the time, it's the best day of the week for me. And I really appreciate it. And you can tell all of your folks that the very first, if you just hold on a second, I'll get my calendar up here and then I can give you the correct date. But in January, we'll start a new class for a new beginning class, a new intro class again. And it'll be that first full week in January. So the week that starts on Sunday the 6th, that week I'll be announcing it because I'm going to chat with some of you and find out, if it's better for you to keep your advanced classes on Mondays or if you want to change because it'll be a Monday, Tuesday So I'll just have to decide which day the advanced classes continue and which days the intro classes continue. So I'll be in touch with all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been wonderful. Look forward to a lot of you continuing with me next week when we start talking about the skin and all the marvelous complexities of how that affects so many things in your life and your body and your health and your mental health, and all those kinds of things are affected by your skin. So until next Monday, and thank you to everyone who has been involved. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and have a wonderful week. And I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.